Tax season is among us. Are you ready? If not, let me give you some tips that'll help you get there. Let's go.
The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia Melanie.
Hi everyone, it's Sophia Melanie, the Debt Demolisher, here to bring you the tools, tips, and tricks to help you manage your financial baggage the right way. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about all the things that you need to get prepared for tax season. Yes, we have arrived into the space. We have arrived into the time. We have arrived into the season of beginning our tax planning, tax preparation for the last calendar year that we just came out of. Can you believe that it is time for us to begin to get all of our documents, to receive all of our tax forms so that we can start filing these things? Some of you may not be very happy about what you may have to file for if you have to owe, but some of us may be very excited around this season of filing because we expect some hefty type of tax refund. In today's video, I want to talk to you about how you can best get prepared. What are some of the resources that are available to you? And then of course, in future videos, I'm going to be sharing what you can do maybe as a business owner, what you can do as a caregiver, what you can do as a provider for either a child or a sibling or a loved one or someone that you claim, to be able to take advantage of these tax advantages, and more specifically, how you can use the resources from your tax refunds to benefit your financial pockets later on down the line. So let's first start about how you can prepare for this tax season. You all know that January 31st is typically the deadline where all documentation has to be provided to taxpayers. And what this means is every company that you work for, every company that you do business with, and where they have a responsibility to provide some form of tax form documentation to you, it has to be postmarked by January 31st of every year. And this gives you the opportunity to either receive it shortly a few days after the 31st, or you will receive it before the 31st of January so that you can begin to file your tax returns. Generally, by the second to last Monday in January is when the free file typically opens up. And what this means is that the IRS is opening up their doors for taxpayers to begin to start filing their tax returns. One of the things that is most advantageous is that the earlier you get your tax returns filed is the earlier that you'll be able to get a refund. And not only that, the earlier you will be able to know how much you owe and you will need to pay by that April tax deadline. So when you're thinking about your tax strategy, you're thinking about your preparation strategy, you want to make sure that you have all of your documents before you begin to file. Because what you don't want to do is believe that you received everything that you should have, and then you go ahead and file, and then turns out there was some additional information that you should have filed for, but you didn't, and you choose not to amend your return. And then what will happen after the fact is later on down the line, you will get some form of an adjustment from the IRS indicating saying, hey, you did not account for this on your tax returns. So what are some things that you can do to make sure that you have everything that you have? One thing that I love to do is to put together a checklist for me to be able to ask myself, who did I do business with this year? Who have I worked for? Are there any tithes and offerings or charitable donations that I have given to a 501c3 charitable organization? Which banking institutions do I do business with or that I might have earned interest through? Which investment vehicles or which stocks have I sold, or which sales might have taken place that would have triggered an accounting event that will require reporting for tax purposes? Now, I know all of this may seem like it's convoluted language or things that you may not even think of, but what you can do as a great general reminder is just look at where activity is showing up inside of your portfolios. So if you have a bank account, you can look to see who do you do business with in terms of interest charges. You can look to see who are you sending money to for you to be able to purchase investments, whether you have these pocket apps that do investing, or if you have digital currencies that you might have even purchased as well. You want to look into each of these things to make sure that there isn't something that you should have received from them that you now have to report for tax purposes. So the best way to do this is to log into those apps and see if they have tax forms that have been generated for you. Even if you don't know where to go to find these tax forms, the information is there. You could always leverage Google as your source to find out how to find tax documents under X, Y, and Z app. 9 times out of 10, direct instructions will be given to you to tell you exactly what you need to do and where you need to go to get that information. You also want to think about if there were any major cancellations of debt that might have occurred for you. Was there a car maybe that you used to have and that debt was canceled? Was there any other form of debt cancellation that might have occurred within the last calendar year? Because 9 times out of 10, if you have a debt cancellation, it is taxable, and more than likely you will receive a 1099-C in the mail for the amounts that has been forgiven, and it will tell you whether or not if you have to include that as part of taxable income. So before you go and file, create a checklist and think about all of the things that has happened within your most recent tax year and begin to say, did I receive a form for this? If you know that you've worked more than one job, then you know that you should be expecting a W-2 from each of those jobs. If you served as an independent contractor, meaning you may not have a 9-to-5 and maybe you work independently and you've conducted business for other businesses, then in that case, you will more than likely receive a 1099 miscellaneous in the mail, or you may receive a 1099 non-employee compensation form in the mail. And all of these things you have to make sure that you account for so that you're not underreporting when it's time for you to file. So I know that you may be hearing this announcement that Free File is open and I can start filing my tax returns. Do not, and I mean do not, file incomplete tax returns. Make sure that you have all of your documentation before you begin to file. And while you're doing that, you can really begin to think about what advantages you can take to minimize your tax liability in a legitimate way. So if you are a business owner, this is the time for you to be gathering all of your business expenses, being very clear on what that activity is, how that expense works towards driving revenue and business to your business. You want to look at all of these things and begin to gather as much support as possible to be able to offset that income that you're going to have to report. Another thing is you want to think about income that you might have received from your website. Many of you have used different types of platforms to generate income, and more than likely those platforms that you use will send you a 1099 in the mail as well. And these types of 1099s are basically 1099s that summarizes your transactions from sales or monies received within a tax year, but they break it out by month. So you'll see something like this for third-party transactions. And really what that means is that the website or that the platform that you use that collects the money from the customers that you have, they take their percentage, they take their fees or whatever, and then they deposit the rest inside of your account. So if you notice on those 1099Ks, they have the amounts listed by month. And with that, you want to make sure that you receive any and all 1099Ks for any types of transactions that might have occurred through third-party networks so that you can fully account for those monies. Recently on my channel, I did a video that talked about whether or not if your Cash App money, whether or not your Venmo money, whether or not your PayPal money would be reportable for tax purposes on a 1099. And what I mentioned in that video right here is that for tax year purposes for 2022, meaning tax year 2022, which is filed in calendar year 2023, those 1099s will not be issued for these mobile app type providers, so Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, and so forth. But that does not mean that it's not going to happen in the future. They've delayed the enforcement in terms of the implementation around these third-party network companies having to provide 1099s to their customers or to those who are using the platform to receive money if they receive more than $600 in a given year. So think about this for your tax strategy for 2023, how you want to handle that, but you don't really have to focus on that right now. If you're more focused on tax preparation and getting yourself together for your 2022 tax filings or for your most recent tax filings, then you want to put your emphasis on that in the interim. Here on the channel, we will be continuing the conversation around tax preparation and things that you need to consider, not only for this season, but for future tax years. But what I want you to do is to focus on getting your ducks in a row when it comes to your paperwork around tax season. Get your receipts together, get your tax forms, begin to compile them, make sure that you have everything that you need before you file. And once you've done that, make sure that you come back for the next video. Remember, your financial prosperity awaits you, and so does your financial sanity. You already know what I'm going to tell you to do, and that's what? Get to work. All right, guys. Bye. Generally, within the first... Generally by the third or okay, now get it together. What was I trying to say? Okay, generally, yeah, okay, all right.
The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia Meloni. The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia Meloni. The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia Meloni.